Netflix's latest hit, Griselda, starring Sofia Vergara, is making waves and social media are reacting. It took almost no time and controversies about the show and production came to light. Let's look at why Griselda's son had a problem with Sofia Vergara's appearance and the reason the family sued the production and Sofia herself. Netflix loves to give its subscribers new content from a criminal world full of violence, money, and illegal substances. And the miniseries Griselda is no exception. This time around, we've got a story of the first woman billionaire who made her fortune on an illegal substance cartel and other criminal activities based on real-life events in the life of Griselda Blanco. But the streaming service felt like they needed to adjust Griselda's story for the audience so it'd appeal to a larger demographic. The director of the show, Andres Baez, said in the interview that they did all the research possible to make it as close to reality as possible. They've read all possible books, did interviews with many people involved in Griselda's life, and also watched all possible documentaries already made about her life. But at the same time, they chose a general theme for the show, which is women in power who are also part of the patriarchy. He said in the interview, "So a lot of what you see in the show, a lot of characters, events, actions are absolutely real, but we were most interested in our theme and the inner truth of those characters." One of the scenes which were created to strengthen the theme of the show was between Griselda and June Hawkins. In that scene, June delivers the news that Griselda's 3 sons were fatally injured just a few months before Griselda was supposed to get out of prison. It was created just for this purpose, and the meeting was supposed to reflect on their experience as mothers, which they have in common. At the same time, however, it wasn't supposed to be interpreted as June being sympathetic to Griselda. According to the co-showrunner Doug Miro, June is 70% based on reality, and the other part is artistic choice. In reality, June met Griselda only once, and the meeting wasn't as dramatic as portrayed in the show. She said in the interview that they barely interacted. She preferred to observe her, and she saw an old, tired, and resentful woman, and not the badass she imagined Griselda would be. When it comes to June's love life in real life, she married her colleague from Griselda's case, Detective Al Singleton. In the show, they worked closely on the case. Al was also another consultant for the show, together with June's son, Eric Reynolds, who was inspired by his mother to become a cop. The show heavily suggests that Griselda ended the life of Alberto Bravo, her second husband. The reason for this violent action was that he forced his wife to sleep with his brother, who was also their boss, which was supposed to happen in exchange for forgetting about their debt. After that, she runs away and starts her own cartel from scratch. In reality, however, she was suspected of ending not one but 2 lives of her husbands. She allegedly ordered a person to get rid of her first husband, Carlos Trujillo, who was the father of her 3 eldest children. What's more, Griselda and Alberto were already big players in the smuggling underworld at that time. There's also no evidence that Alberto forced her to have inappropriate relations with his brother. Instead, Griselda thought that Alberto was the one responsible for missing profits, and she confronted him and left as a widow with complete control over the empire. Another difference between reality and the series is that Griselda never had children with her husband Alberto, but she had 3 kids with Carlos, which isn't shown in the series. Her first husband, Carlos, was a document forger who married young Griselda when she was only 13, but business stood in the way of their marriage, so she got rid of him as he was no longer so useful. In the show, we could also see that she had another child with Dario Sepulveda, a son named Michael Corleone. The 2 of them could meet as it was portrayed in the show. At the moment when Dario refuses to do as he was told and ends her life instead, destroys his boss. At the end of the show, Dario leaves her together with their son to protect him. In reality, Griselda didn't like that, so she did what she liked to do and got rid of him, and her son was returned to her. In the show, Griselda, after selling samples to the white, wealthy people, organizes a party on a yacht, which aids German Paniso in partnering up with her. In reality, there's a chance that the party could have happened, but Griselda's innovation, getting into the rich white market, wasn't the goal. Her biggest contribution to the world of smuggling is the use of motorcycles for shoutouts that were done by driving by. It's still used to this day. But what the show got right was that Griselda stood behind the manufacturing of a special kind of lingerie, which had pockets sewn to smuggle things in them. The reason why it worked was that men were less suspicious of attractive women, which was something Griselda predicted, We already know that Griselda was brutal while doing her business, and Netflix portrayed only a part of it in the show. At first, ending someone's life is difficult for Griselda in the show. She feels a big amount of guilt for ordering a person to get rid of the witnesses, and she's not able to end the life of a man who beheaded Griselda's best friend. The turn only happens when she becomes responsible for mass bloodshed when she struggles to be seen seriously by the Narco Boys Club. In real life, Griselda was supposed to commit her first bloodshed when she was still young, basically a child. She and her friends allegedly kidnapped a wealthy young man from the neighborhood family and tried to ransom him. Them being just children, they weren't taken seriously by the adults in the family, so Griselda chose to end the boy's life. According to the story, she was only 11 when that happened, which is more than disturbing. In the show, we have many examples of how ruthless she was, but it still has nothing in real life. In the series, Griselda's revenge on Pinesso after his betrayal is bloodshed in a strip mall where he and another man are trying to buy liquor. The reality isn't much different. The event played out similarly, but the real motif of Griselda is unknown. The incident is known as the Dadeland Mall Massacre. Another incident that was watered down for the show was the scene where Griselda sends a man to separate Papo's head from the rest of his body. In real life, it was even worse. One of Griselda's men was given a vintage bayonet from the war and was given orders to stab Papo like he would stab a pig right in the center of Miami International Airport, and the man did as he was told. Sofia Vergara's appearance is heavily transformed for the role to resemble the main character. She had to sit in the makeup chair for hours to get all the prosthetics on herself by the team and to change her posture, but that wasn't enough according to Griselda Blanco's real son, Michael Corleone Blanco. He called Sofia ugly, which is seen as controversial as Sofia is seen as one of the most beautiful women in the industry. He said in the interview, "My mother was a beautiful woman, and it's crazy that a lot of people say, no, you've got to look more like an addict. The fact that they call her ugly, that really offends me. People see the mugshots and just go from that, but when you read my book, you'll see that my mother was called the porcelain doll in her youth." He went even deeper by attacking the actress's intentions. Both Sofia and Griselda share the same Colombian heritage, and according to him, the choice of wearing the prosthetics feels like disrespect towards another woman from Colombia. He said in the interview, "All I have to say is that if my mother was alive, she wouldn't have got away with it. It's such a slap in the face knowing that we come from the same land, that we come from the same culture." But unfortunately for him, Twitter's popular account Pop Crave shared a picture of Sofia as Griselda and Griselda's mugshot next to each other, and the fans were quick to defend the actress, where the general feeling was that Netflix got Sofia to play the character and the son still has a nerve to complain about it. Many can sympathize with Michael that it's important to defend a person's parent, but this is probably not the time for that. But Michael didn't stop here and now is suing the production and Sofia Vergara, who's an executive producer of the project. According to him, he was participating in interviews with people whose goal was to develop a series and a book about Griselda. The streaming service was interested in making a show, but they didn't want to use Michael's interviews. What's more, Michael tried to reach out to the production and offer his consultations, but he was told that there was no room for him on the project. According to him, the creators were disrespectful and used his mother for commercial profit. According to the lawsuit, the production used his interviews while making the show, but he was never given any money for his participation. He said in the interview, "I am Griselda's only living son that has life rights agreements signed by Griselda herself, in which she intended I carry out her life story." Interestingly enough, neither Netflix nor Sofia commented on the lawsuit. It'll be interesting to see how it'll be resolved. Who knows, maybe the streaming service will make another show about the lawsuit.